So we're going to go ahead and get started. So for those on Zoom, I'm Anna Cott, Sustainability Planner at East West Gateway. Wanted to thank you all for joining, and thanks to everyone who came in person. I wanted to mention, for those of you who aren't familiar with 1STL, it's a collaborative sustainability initiative for the bi-state St. Louis region. And we have these monthly sustainability labs. Our next one is on Tuesday, January 30th at 3:45 about how we can equitably grow our green workforce in the region. And if you are interested in subscribing for monthly updates, you can scan this QR code or go to 1stl.org and you'll get updates about the sustainability labs. And I also wanted to mention, so at this event, we'll be talking about rebates and tax credits for climate action. And we have some great speakers. And for anyone who is a homeowner or renter, this is a lot of information. And if you find it overwhelming, I would really recommend going to rewiringamerica.org, which has a lot of the rebates and tax credits you're eligible for. And Eric will share more about that later, and we can share the link in the chat. But of course, that doesn't include information about incentives from your utility. So you'll also want to check your utility for those separately. I also wanted to mention we'll be recording this presentation and posting it on 1STL's YouTube channel. So you can feel free to share it with other people who you think may want the information. And that link is shared in the chat as well, but it's also at 1stl.org. You can find our YouTube. And we do hope to have time for questions at the end. I also wanted to mention that the state rebate program we'll be discussing first. I don't believe it's live yet, but since a lot of appliances and home upgrades are only done every 20 years or more, it's a really good idea to have a plan and keep in mind incentives that might come available, and just have a plan for electrifying your building. Okay, let's see. So I wanted to thank all of our speakers so much for taking the time to come and share about their programs. Martin Hyman from the Missouri Division of Energy and Heather Nafong from Illinois Office of Energy are going to be sharing about funding programs from the states. And then we also have Mark Minden from Ameren, Illinois, and Sequoia Davis from Ameren, Missouri, sharing about Ameren's incentive programs. And then Eric Schneider from Straight Up Solar will be sharing about available tax credits. So I wanted to pass it off to Martin, and he's joining us online. So let me just make sure. Okay, he is online. And before I do that, I just wanted to mention, so we've asked Martin and Heather to share about the state home energy rebate programs and energy efficiency and conservation block grant. So I just wanted to note that the second one, I believe, is intended for local government. So as all of our speakers are sharing about these programs, if you could just mention whether the eligible entity would be a resident, nonprofit, local government, or business, or someone else, just for anyone's information who's listening in. So I'll go ahead and pass it off to Martin.
Good afternoon. Oh, wait for my slides.
We can't hear you in the room, but that might be a volume issue here. Can you try? Oh, wait.
Yeah, I'm trying to adjust my mic volume and it's being ornery with me.
I can hear him online, so I'm not sure what that means, Anna. If you can hear me.
Yeah, I can get somebody who might know a little bit better, but just in case,
Yeah.
see if it's.
We're not muted, but.
So does this play?
Oh, wait, Martin, can you try saying something again?
Something again.
No.
Okay, so the audio is going here.
Can you try? Oh,
I
that
got
worked.
you.
I just needed to put it in a different port. Okay.
Okay, so, and you have my slides, right? Or do you need me to, there we go, perfect. So yes, I am Martin Hyman. I'm a senior energy advisor with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources Division of Energy. And like Anna said, I'll be giving an update on where our state is with the home energy rebates under the Inflation Reduction Act and the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Next slide, please. Just the standard disclaimer that this presentation is just for informational purposes, and for official program details, we recommend consulting with the applicable federal or state materials that get issued, like funding opportunity announcements. Next slide, please. So a bit about the agency I work for, in case you're not familiar with us. We include the State Energy Program for Missouri and Missouri's Low-Income Weatherization Assistance Program. And our goal is to advance the efficient use of diverse energy resources and achieve greater energy security for future generations of Missourians through weatherization services, increased awareness of energy efficiency programs, providing pathways to energy-related jobs, and promoting the use of alternative energy resources, particularly in the transportation sector. Traditionally, most of our funding has come through the U.S. Department of Energy's State Energy Program and Weatherization Assistance Program, along with earnings from our Energy Loan Program and part of the state's Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program allocation that supports additional weatherization. Next slide, please. So, a bit of background on the home energy rebates under the Inflation Reduction Act. For those who aren't familiar, really there are two different programs that get lumped under that header of home energy rebates, and they have separate sections in the statute. The first program is the Home Efficiency Rebates Program, and under that program, our state will get about $75.8 million on what's called a formula basis. Basically, that just means that once we apply for the money and put a hold on it, it's there for our state. It's not, New York's not going to be able to come in and swoop up and take our money if they go faster. Under this program, we will provide support for whole home efficiency improvements based on achieved or modeled savings. And sort of jumping ahead in the sub-bullets there, what that really means is that this program is focused on the overall energy savings that are achieved, rather than prescribing that you have to get a heat pump or something like that. You do have to get a major upgrade as it's defined, including stuff potentially like home heating and cooling. But again, it's more focused on the total savings level. This program is open to fundamentally, it's about providing upgrades for homes, but it's not you don't have to be the homeowner to apply. You could be a landlord at a multifamily building. You could be someone performing projects for a group of entities, but fundamentally it's to serve people who live in homes. The income of the recipient does affect the rebate level that's received. The cutoff there is 80% of area median income. Those below that cutoff will get a higher rebate amount, but the program is not exclusively low income. So if you have a higher income than that, you can still get a rebate. It'll just be a lower rebate level. The second program under these home energy rebates is the Home Electrification and Appliance Rebates Program, getting roughly the same amount of money, again on a formula basis for the state. And that will be to support high efficiency residential electric upgrades like electric heat pumps in low to medium income households. So this one is more prescriptive in terms of install a certain type of heat pump, get X level of rebate. Again, same target market in terms of being for homes, but potentially having different pathways for those homes to get the upgrades in terms of who would apply. In this case, it is, in a sense, an income qualified program. If you're below 80% of area median income, you get a higher rebate amount. And if you're somewhere between 80 and 150%, you would get a lower rebate amount. Beyond that, you would not be eligible for a rebate. For both of these programs, the feds do require us to set aside minimum amounts to give to low-income and multifamily low-income homes. Funds will be distributed to us from from DOE in tranches or tiers based on how far we get with implementing the program. So something like we get a certain amount of money out the door and meet other requirements, we get the next batch of funding. We will have to submit separate applications for these two programs. That's really more of a bureaucratic thing to note. Next slide, please. In terms of the key dates, DOE released the guidance and applications for us to receive funds on July 27th. And by August 16th of next year, we will need to notify whether or not we plan to apply. And I mean, I'm assuming that we plan to apply. Certainly all signs point that way. Full applications by the state aren't due until January 31 of 2025. Next slide, please. There was an opportunity to pursue early administrative funds. At this time, we have not elected to do so, just because when those early administrative funds became available for things like program setup, there really wasn't enough guidance from DOE for us to know exactly what to do with the funds. We have, however, received appropriations from the General Assembly to allow us to start program activities. That's one of the quirks of getting federal funding, is you still have to have state permission to actually spend it. There was also an option that DOE provided to pursue what's called a quick start option, where basically the programs would get up and running by the end of the year. But as you'll see why when I go through the rest of this slide, we elected not to do so just because there would not be the time or resources for us to feasibly do that. And while I did mention that the application deadline is January 31 of 2025, if possible, if circumstances allow, we're certainly not going to just hold on to the application just because we can. With that said, in terms of what we have to do before those rebates become available to the public, or even submit the application, there are a few steps we have to go through. The first is really more of a procedural one, that we need to submit documentation for something called intergovernmental review. That's really just a notification that we're going to apply for funding. And then we'll have to submit our notices that will apply for the funds. That's that August 16th deadline, just to make sure that the funds aren't reallocated to other states. At some point before we submit our application, we will also conduct public outreach in order to get input on what should go into the application. And then, once all that's done and we've dotted the I's, crossed the T's, thought through various technical and policy questions, we'll be able to submit those applications. Sometime before we submit those applications, we can begin a process for what's called request for proposals. And that will be to hire one or more implementation contractors to run these programs. They would not be things that we would be able to handle in-house by ourselves. And the RFP process can take about a year, if not more. And really, again, can only begin once we know what we want to put in the RFP, which will be sometime once we've got the applications fairly well baked. And then once we've got the money from DOE and we've awarded the contracts, we can start getting the program set up. So really, that is a long-winded way of explaining the timeline that we're looking at, which is probably that the rebates would not be available until sometime in 2025 at the earliest. Next slide, please. So the other program that Anna mentioned was the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, or EECBG, as it's not necessarily affectionately known. That is a formula grant program under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which you might recall was passed about a year before the Inflation Reduction Act. And the money in this program is going to be used to reduce total energy use, improve energy efficiency, and reduce emissions. The total amount of money that the state of Missouri is getting is somewhere south of $2.4 million. And we have to provide 60% of that money, at least, to localities that weren't eligible for direct funding from DOE. So some areas like St. Louis, basically the larger areas in the state, get their own direct allocations. And we would basically act as a pass-through entity to give that money to smaller localities that didn't get their own direct allocations. The uses of the money are pretty darn broad. There are 14 eligible project categories that are defined in statute and federal guidance. It can be a lot of different things, up to and including, supporting financing programs to help people with energy efficiency. But it's really pretty broad, and it's sort of to be determined on our end what we're going to funnel money towards on the local level. The deadline for us is that once we've got the money in hand from DOE, we will have 180 days to subaward those funds. So it'll be a pretty rapid turnaround once the money is in hand. Next slide, please. Oop, there we go. Right now, we're finalizing and editing a revised application to meet the USDOE's requirements. And then we'll be we're starting this right now, but it'll really kick into gear once we've submitted the application. We'll be developing a program, and we're already conducting some preliminary outreach on what cities and counties might be interested in using the money for. And as with the IRA rebates, what I would say in terms of getting updates is guidance will be forthcoming. Next slide, please. So for more information on these programs, please do visit our website. There's actually a button on that page that I've got info linked to on the slide that you can click on that button and get email updates when we have more information to provide. You can also email us if you have other questions or call us at those numbers. And Anna, I don't know, were you planning to pause now for questions or wait till the end?
I think if it's all right, we might take all questions at the end. But
Makes sense.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Martin. And I think we're
Sure.
going to go to Heather now.
All right, well, hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. My name is Heather Nifong, and I'm Associate Director at Illinois EPA. At the moment, we do not have an Office of Energy Manager. I'm hoping that position will be filled effective January, so we're close to having someone. The Office of Energy is a small office. We are the State Energy Office. And if you'll go to the next slide, please, Anna. I borrowed Martin's disclaimer here, so we can blow past that. Okay, so Office of Energy. So as I mentioned, we are a small office. We have 4 staff, and we used to be, our mandates were housed with the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. And in 2017, we had a executive order that moved the State Energy Office over to Illinois EPA. And the weatherization office is still at DECIO, but we have the State Energy Office Authority and the State Energy Program. And so with that come some other programs I'll reference. But as you'll see here from this slide, there are 4 main sort of values that we're putting forward in our work. One is to invest in the public sector. Another is to advance energy equity. We want to combine energy and environment. One of our longstanding programs here is to support energy efficiency in water infrastructure, wastewater treatment plants and public drinking water treatment plants, and supporting energy education. Next slide. So here's where we get our funding. We have formula funding through the State Energy Program at U.S. Department of Energy. And then we have all these new federal funds, which we'll talk about. And we have 2 state funds, the Energy Efficiency Trust Fund and a Renewable Energy Trust Fund. I want to mention here briefly, under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, we have additional programs, which I don't have slides for, but I do want to mention. One of them will be a new Energy Efficiency Revolving Loan Fund, which is $15 million coming to Illinois. We don't have the money yet, but we may have it by the end of this year. And when that money comes, as with so many of these federal programs, there is a clock that starts, and we have 180 days before the first loan needs to be made available, or the applications need to be opened up. So if we do get this money at the end of the year, we're talking, midsummer, if not sooner, before loans would be available under that. And that would be focused on public buildings. And then we also will have the EECBG, which I'll mention, and there is a SEP supplemental. SEP is the State Energy Program. And for that, we're going to be looking at additional investments in water infrastructure, including renewable energy at drinking water treatment plants. In regards to the Renewable Energy Trust Fund, we have an annual investment that we make that is a line item appropriation through our Illinois General Assembly. to the Illinois Green Economy Network, also known as IGEN. And if you're familiar with that, you'll know it's a consortium of community colleges across Illinois. And the money that we put to IGEN goes for grants for them to do any number of sustainable upgrades, green upgrades. So it could be EV charging stations at community colleges. It could be curriculum development. So they do a lot of good work with that money. Okay, next slide. All right, the rebate program. So in Illinois, again, it's formula allocation. So for each of these programs, we're going to see around $132 million. Same explanation as Martin gave in Missouri as to how the money can be spent. Go to the next slide, please. Okay, so here's the timeline that we're looking at. On the left, you'll see the federal key dates. And as you heard from Missouri, state applications are due in January of 2025. So for Illinois, we received with the start of the fiscal year in our state, the appropriations for the rebates. And we also opted not to use Quick Start. We don't have the resources for that. But we do intend to submit our 2 applications for the program in the first quarter of 2024. What we want to do in terms of sequencing is to first have the award in hand, have all of our final terms and conditions, and then release the RFP, the request for proposal, because we too will need a third-party administrator. And our RFP process is similarly a months-long process, up to a year. And our hope is by sequencing our work by first applying and then seeking a third-party administrator through the request for proposal, the work that the potential vendors will do with working in other states, there will be some ramp-up time that they will have already undertaken. And so where there are commonalities across states in how certain elements of the program will be administered, we're hoping that will really speed up the time once we execute a contract with a third-party administrator for them to turn around a developed product and program for us for our rebates. So we're hoping that enables us to make rebates available in early 2025. Okay, next slide, please. We have created a web page that is specific to the energy rebates. The address is here on the slide, but if you go to that web page, you'll find a number of links with more resources and updated information. Earlier today, my staff and I had a call with US EPA's Energy Start program, and they're going to be providing more information for us to also add to our webpage. So for example, they talked about adding a link that would enable a rebate finder so that interested parties could search for existing tax credits and rebates, as we wait for these other programs to be made available. We have other links and resources on the webpage, as well as a listserv that we're standing up so that we can provide updates on a somewhat regular basis as we have more information available. So if you are interested in more, I would strongly encourage you to visit that webpage and sign up for the listserv. Okay, next slide. All right, so our EECBG program. So we have about 2.9 million in our formula award. And as Martin explained, this is for units of local government that are not eligible for direct funding. And all that direct funding is based on population levels. We're going to be using the US DOE blueprints. And we have our award. It actually arrived this month. And like these others, we have 180 days to make our first grant, but we have our notice of funding opportunity ready to go, and I think we will see an announcement very, very, very soon. So we're in, I think, good shape there and excited to get that one going. Okay, next slide. All right, so I wanted to highlight this program, which is a state-funded program. This is through the Energy Efficiency Trust Fund. And this is a new grant. We issued the NOFO last month, I believe. It is for public housing authorities, local governments, or nonprofits. And as you'll see here on the bullets, it is to fund energy efficiency improvements that would benefit residents receiving housing assistance from a state or federal program. We offered this grant last year. At the time, we called it the Low Income Residential Efficiency Grant Program. What we've done this time around, we wanted to change the name so it would line up better with the actual funding source, but we've made two significant changes. We are enabling this to be used statewide. It is also really trying to reduce barriers to funding. So another significant change is that previously and usually for all of our grants, they operate on a reimbursement basis, which is we tell you you have an award, but you have to front the money, then you submit your invoices to us, we pay, and we keep that cycle going until the project is complete. In this particular case, we have worked it out to where there is no need to front the money. The recipient, the awardee, incurs the cost through their contractor. They pass through the invoices to us, we pay the invoices, they provide confirmation that the contractor has been paid. And we turn that around quickly enough so that the contractor's not having to float the money for a long time either. But I think that will go a long way towards enabling more public housing authorities to participate. And you'll also see that we have a very low cost match, and it depends on the size of the grant, but it does not exceed 10%. So we're pretty excited about getting this one going. And I also wanted to add that in regard to using some of that supplemental, the state energy program supplemental under the bipartisan infrastructure law, we are going to be funding more assessments for public housing authorities and local governments, because an assessment is required to take advantage of this grant funding. So we want to try to come back around, and this does not have a defined due date for the applications. It's applications will be accepted until we expend all of our funding, and for this particular time period, we have $5 million available, with the expectation that we'll be able to keep this going in future years. So, okay, I think I've said enough about that. Next slide, please. Okay, so questions. What I've listed here are our energy web email account. So we monitor that daily and respond to inquiries. And then this funding opportunities webpage will have all of our notice of funding opportunities. And we expect to see these added regularly, as I mentioned, especially with EECBG imminent. I think that's it for me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Heather.
You're welcome.
And now we're going to go to some of our speakers in person. So I think Mark is next from Ameren, Illinois.
Unmute myself would help.
Not yet, because then there'll be
Okay.
an echo. You can just click later, I guess.
Can everybody hear me all right? Yeah. Okay. First off, I want to thank STL for presenting this and being able to be the glue. We have energy companies here. We have representations from states, and we're here at T-Rex. That's also a collider ecosystem in itself, and really what Ameren wants to position itself as, and what we are is kind of the conduit and the glue. Yes, we provide the energy, but can you hear us? Oh, I'm gonna mute somebody. Sorry. Yes, we provide the energy, but much more than that, we really want to be the thought leaders that help connect people to state, local, federal resources, as well as incentive programs that we've created to be able to advance the electrification of the state of Illinois. And so in terms of the areas we cover, we can go to the next slide. So I'm part of the efficient electrification and product development team under beneficial electrification. And we have a number of programs coming out, new ones we'll talk about in a second, as well as ones that we've already stood up. We cover the geographic area down here, and the map might be hard to see on the slide. But essentially, we have a website that anybody that is interested can go to and sign up to get a energy advisor. And so that energy advisor will work directly with the people to walk them through the steps that are needed to apply for incentives and funding, and show them best practices, and bring the information and education and awareness needed to make the good decisions. And so it's here we have a link, AmerenIllinoisSavings.com. So write that down if you're in Illinois. And also, next slide. So we have some new programs on beneficial electrification that we're starting right now. We were in all-day meetings today. We'll be in all-day meetings tomorrow, and we're getting ready to go. One that's already been in operation is our fleet assessment program. And for this, we provide it at a cost to us, but not a cost to the university or the city or the private company, our school. It is free to them, and we will do a comprehensive fleet assessment and show what a transition will be to make their fleet electrified. And it'll show everything from charging stations, planning, what size vehicles that complement the current fleet that they're using. And so this is a program, again, paid for by Ameren, free for those who participate in it. All that we ask from the Ameren side is that the education and awareness becomes useful. We have a driver's education program, and this provides EV-focused curriculum to high schools. And we want to start early when they're starting to drive and show them the benefits of driving electric vehicles. We also have vehicle rebates and equity investment eligible communities. We do trade ally programs. So in our trade ally programs, we have a trade ally person here. We're able to make sure that we have the right professionals to be able to install what's needed to electrify that area, and that those professional organizations also we pay attention to minority businesses, and make sure the full spectrum of everybody is covered to be able to provide what is needed for the electrification in that area. And then community engagement and consultation is a new program we are kicking off. I'm fortunate enough to be the one leading that. We had a huge meeting today, all-day meetings on it. And essentially what we're going to do with community engagement and consultation is work with communities to do in-depth electrification plans from start to finish. And so we will be able to work with cities, municipalities at a top level, look at their electrification plan, and then tag that on to our different programs and do a comprehensive plan for electrifying that area. And I will say this, you always want to start with the utility. That's going to be what's important when you're thinking about electrification, long-term planning, where the grid is, how the power is going to get there. And so we are a resource that not only can provide incentives and knowledge, but you're going to need us there in order to make it happen. So it's always good to at least initially start with the utility. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And I've got my information on here. The email is electrifyillinois@ameren.com. My direct email is mbinden@ameren.org. Actually should be ameren.com, sorry. Little typo there. And then electrification, amerenillinois.com/EV. And with that, I think we'll save questions for the very end. and we can go.
Oh.
Oh, you had it.
I was just gonna ask you if you have an equivalent program in Missouri.
Well, we have Missouri talking next, so we'll be able to.
Right.
Good lead.
Yeah, you were leaving us out.
Great introduction. And with that, I'm gonna roll it. There you
All right, Mark. That is the perfect introduction for Sequoia.
I don't have to wonder any longer.
No.
go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sequoia Davis. I work for Ameren, Missouri as a program supervisor on the efficient electrification team. And I'm going to share some information with you regarding our EV charging incentive program for our business customers.
Oh, should there be an? I can
Well, that's
go.
okay.
Oh,
I can
okay.
start here.
Okay.
So the reason that we were offering the EV charging incentive program is to help accelerate EV adoption throughout our service area. So for most of our customers that are EV drivers, they're well aware that once you purchase an electric vehicle, majority of your charging will take place at the comfort of your home. But once you leave your home, EV drivers also want to know that they'll have access to charging equipment. So we've partnered with our business customers to install EV charging so that we now have it in the community where it's visible and accessible to these EV drivers. And we're incentivizing our business customers by paying up to 50% of the total project cost for the EV charging project. So that would include cost of the equipment, cost of labor, and also any site preparation activity. So the EV charging incentive program that you see here on this slide, how this works is that any Ameren, Missouri business customer is eligible as long as we are your electric provider. And you will be incentivized for installing a level 2 and our DC fast charger at your place of business. And again, we will offer an incentive to offset up to 50% of the cost. And also just to share with you, EV, electric vehicle interest, continues to increase. So as of last quarter, we had close to 19,000 EV registrations just within the Ameren, Missouri service area. So there's definitely a need for businesses to take advantage of this great incentive and have EV charging available to those new EV drivers that are on the road today and will be on the road tomorrow. With the incentive program, go to the next slide, please. So with the incentive program, we're incentivizing those business customers for installing EV charging at public locations and also multifamily apartment buildings. So there's approximately 1.6 million still remaining. So there's 1.2 million remaining for public charging funding and approximately 400,000 remaining for multifamily apartment building. So this program will last until December the 31st of 2024, or once these funds have been exhausted. So whichever comes first will determine when the program ends. So we're encouraging our business customers to take advantage of this incentive while the funds are still there. Also, I would also say for the customers that do participate in this program, not only are you potentially bringing new customers to your facility, so it is an opportunity for additional revenue, attracting new customers, have your existing customers to shop just a little bit longer at your public location while their EV is conveniently being charged, but you're also shown as a leader in sustainability within a community, which is a huge win. Next slide, please. And I also wanted to mention about our electric vehicle partner network known as EVP. So we often have customers that say, I'm interested in participating in the incentive program. However, I don't know where to start. So we do have a network of what we call EVPs. They're EV professional contractors that will help you as a customer from start to finish on your EV charging project. And they will also offer to submit the incentive application on your behalf. So it's a great resource to help you on this EV journey. So if you would like to learn more about the EV charging incentive program, you can scan the QR code. It takes you directly to our website where there's an application, or you can also send an email directly to the evmissouri@ameren.com email address. And we'll reach out to you and assist with any questions you may have. So again, a great opportunity for our business customers.
Oh, sorry, did you get the QR code?
You get it?
Did you get the QR code?
No.
Oh, I can go back if you wanna.
No, that's all right.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
All right, so in addition to the electric vehicle charging incentive program we have for our business customer, we also have rebates available for our energy efficiency programs. So as you can see at the very top at AmerenMissouriSavings.com, if you go to that email address, and that's www.AmerenMissouriSavings.com, it will show you the available rebates for residential customers, and we have quite a few out there. And the next page. At the very top, this is the address for our Ameren Missouri Energy Efficiency Program for business customers. So if you would scan this QR code, it takes you directly to the website. There is a contact us page. Just simply provide your contact information and an energy advisor will reach out to you and work with you on your energy efficiency program. All right, and thank you all for your time. Let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. We have Eric up next and there's a question in the chat for Ameren. Why is the DCFC level 3 charger installation incentive only good, this laptop, only good for up to 74.9 kilowatt hours? Do you happen to know the answer?
Yes, and Ken, feel free to add on anything additional. When the program was initially started, we agreed with the commission on the tariff on the limit for the DC fast charger. And what it does, it prevents us from having to upgrade all of our equipment. So you could imagine if all of our business customers would want to install the biggest and the fastest DC fast charger, that would be a tremendous cost to us. And then that is also cost to the ratepayers too. So we wanted to limit, you know, how big the DC fast charger could be in order to be incentivized. And with that being said, it goes back to what I said initially. Most of your charging takes place at home. So often, as an EV driver, when you're needing to just top off, you're just needing to top off, where it really doesn't require that big of a charger, fast charger. Ken?
Yeah, so two things to think about. One, I don't want people to have tunnel vision around passenger vehicles. There are medium duty vehicles that cannot receive AC charging and they need DC charging, and that a 30 kilowatt, 40 kilowatt, 60 kilowatt charger is appropriate for that, for overnight charging. So that's one way to think about it. And the other way to think about it is that this program is to support Missourians who live within Missouri and charge within Missouri, not necessarily to facilitate interstate travel, which will be funded through the NEVI program. We also have a corridor program, which was kind of put in place by us. It's a complementary program. It was launched at the same time, and that was to set up a minimum viable charging network within our region, and that is in place, and it is higher speeds. Now, when it was started at the speeds that were available at the time, but as we all know, the technology has gone faster. But that is a faster network beyond this. But this was really focused to enable people to operate within our community, not to drive through it as fast as they can.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I'll pass it off to you, Eric.
Right. Hello, my name is Eric Schneider. I'm going to there we go, my screen there. It's great to meet you. That's why I showed up in person, because we're a member of the EV Partner Network,
Yes.
and you do a great job on your webinar. So
Thank
Nice
you.
to
Thank
meet
you for being EVP.
in person. We have 10, I'll put a little plug in for straight up solar. We have 10 electric charging stations that are open to the public. So you guys are more welcome to charge. I think they're level 2 stations there. We have 2 Tesla chargers. So feel free if ever in Maryland Heights, and we're at Lackland and Shoots right on the corner. Feel free to charge your vehicle here. So my task today is to give you guys a briefing on the tax incentives for the Inflation Reduction Act. Oh, thanks. Feel forward.
I have the control. It's just shared on that screen.
Okay, got it. So I'll go over renewable energy tax credits for homeowners and businesses. Talk about some of the energy storage incentives, the electrical vehicle incentives, clean energy property tax credits. I'll skip kind of skip the slides a little bit of the electric home rebates and the home programs. You heard that from the state officials. I just kept in this deck just in case, and then I'll close with some state green home programs here. Thank you, Hannah. A little background on Straight Up Solar. We were founded in 2006 by an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Dane Glick, who was very much interested in extending the notion of caring beyond his medical practice into the community. That's how he got into Straight Up Solar, and he was the first person to put an array on his house, and then it grew all the way up to 2,500 installations that we've done. We're located in Maryland Heights, as I said, and we also service Illinois with an office in Bloomington and an office in Southern Illinois. We do residential, commercial, industrial, battery storage. We also do electrical panel upgrades, EV charging, and we also provide service and maintenance to all our homes and businesses here. Then you can go to the next slide, and also really proud to be part of 137 employees in that picture there. So first of all, I want to mention that the Inflation Reduction Act extended the tax credit for homeowners, the 30% renewable energy tax credit for homeowners and businesses. It was set to expire last year at this time, December 23rd, 2023, but the law now extended it all the way out to 2032. It will drop down the final 2 years of the tax credit to 26 and 22%. So this was a huge stability to the solar industry, and one we were pretty excited about. As you guys know, probably a tax credit is a 1-for-1 deduction of your tax liability. So you have to have tax liability to take advantage of a tax credit. There's no cap, but you can carry it forward in 1 year. And the 30% applies to solar installations, battery storage, solar water heaters, geothermal heat pumps, and small wind energy systems here. So again, this adds stability to the solar industry in addition to some of the other products that are at the bottom here. The next slide. I'll just kind of go over the overlays here of the federal and the state incentives that we have through our utilities here. I think here, again, this is pretty much what I just said here. 30% covers the basic cost of labor, system installation, utility interconnection, electrical services. Like we're considered a solar EPC company. We're a turnkey operator. Many of the solar companies in the St. Louis region are similar. So basically all the fees entailed from a solar installation will be covered by your 30% tax credit here. For a homeowner and a business, this is important as I get later in this presentation, there's no requirement to meet the domestic content criteria to receive the base ITC amount. This domestic content has a 10% adder on it, but as we get into direct pay for governments and nonprofits, you have to have that domestic content to be eligible for the credit here. And again, I mentioned this credit steps down in 2034 and 35, but then zeroes out in 36. So that's the federal level, and we'll kind of start overlaying all these tax credits one by one here. Thanks to Ameren and their success in becoming a carbon neutral company, they've met the renewable portfolio standard in the state of Missouri at 15% by 2021. So the rebate that helped to get to that for homeowners is expires in a month here. So I just wanted to mention that it existed. It definitely helped the solar industry and our customers kind of put solar on their homes here. The average system that we saw was about 10 kW that provided a $2,500 rebate. So thanks to you guys at Ameren for providing that rebate, and maybe in the future it'll get renewed. But right now you guys met the renewable energy portfolio standard. So congratulations on that and what you're doing for net zero. You can go to the next slide. Now Illinois has a little more aggressive renewable portfolio standard. They want to go 40% on the Illinois grid by 2030. They've not achieved that. They're still working their way to do that. So they created a state renewable energy credit, which is based on the power generated by your home or by your business. It's funded through utilities, customers and businesses who pay into your utility, into your bill. So it's not a tax, but that money gives our homeowners and our businesses a cash payment based on the energy generation. So as it does in Illinois for the average homeowner, basically 30% of the installation is now covered by the state renewable energy credit. So you factor in that plus the tax credit, about 60% of the cost of a solar installation in Illinois is covered by other people here. So if you don't have solar on your home, I encourage you to think about it and take advantage of other people's money, as I always say on that here. So those are the setups between the federal and the state. Now, the next slide, we'll kind of go over the adders. I have a slide on the next slide, but there's three major adders that I want to go over in today's presentation. We can keep it on this slide.
Oh, okay.
I'll go back. Thank you, Anna. Energy community is defined as basically if you had a power plant in your community, or you were adjacent to a power plant in your community, or you lived in a community where there were many people in the fossil fuel industry and unemployment is above the state average, you're considered an energy community. And this link, and I'll go to the next slide, shows a map. Let's go to that slide now, Anna. Thank you. So basically in Illinois, it's basically everything south of Springfield is pretty much considered an energy community, which means that if you're a business, you get an extra 10%. It doesn't apply to homeowners. It only applies to businesses. You get an extra 10% tax credit. In Missouri, it's basically this area around Jefferson City and a little bit to the west here and to the very, very north here. There's a small part here in St. Louis. I think it's in St. Charles. I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, younger people, I think maybe the Portage de Sioux plant was maybe closed in St. Charles. And I think that allows that little area in St. Charles County to be eligible for the 10% credit. We can go back to the other slide, but that map is on the Department of Energy. Domestic content, you might have seen the New York Times had a pretty good article today about Q-Cells expanding a plant into Dalton, Georgia. And it looks like in about 2 years, we're going to be pretty close to getting that domestic content available now. Right now, they're still giving guidance on what exactly it means in terms of the silicon cells being manufactured in the United States, the aluminum around it, and the glass that contains it. All those components, we need kind of guidance on what's considered domestic content material here. With that, we'll add on a 10%. Then if you live in a low income community, which is probably similar to the new markets tax credit communities that we're familiar with in the federal government, you would be eligible for another 10 to 20%. Now that's an allocation, it's a competitive application. I think they've allocated $1.8 billion each year for that. So the other ones are automatic. This one you have to, it's competitive, it's good.
It's 1.8 billion watts.
Oh, Billy Watts, thank you.
Not dollars.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Please feel free to correct me.
I've got more questions for you.
Well, sure. You probably have more answers than me too.
No, I don't.
But these adders can be stacked on the underlying credits to receive a higher ITC here. You have the next one here. Again, here's the map of the regions. Again, I encourage you to go to the Department of Energy as the energy community tax credit. And you just type in your address. This is a really cool map. You just type in your address and it tells you if you're in a purple or an orange zone, you're eligible for the credit here. It's a really very nice map. And there's a similar one for the new markets tax credits that's out there. You can figure out the low income communities here. Next slide, please, Anna. So again, here's the domestic content. A little more background on that. At this time, there's no major PV systems that have enough US made components to qualify. There's a company called First Solar that's always been US based, but they are getting their silicon sales from outside the United States. So we're not quite sure. I know as a solar company, we're not showing any proposals with a 10% domestic content adder to our businesses here. We're expected to see that guidance in the first quarter of 2024. Next slide here. So let's talk about direct pay. So what I've talked about previously, I've talked about homeowners who get the tax credit, 30% tax credit. I've talked about businesses who can get the 30%. And when I was meaning the 30%, that's under 1 megawatt, which is pretty much most of the businesses in the St. Louis region. I'm not talking about the utility scale solar that can be 5, 10 megawatts, the kinds that Ameren is building out on Highway 70 and such. Now we have a program called Direct Pay. Who's eligible for that are tax exempt nonprofit organization, governmental entities, tribal communities are eligible for that. It's at 30% for 2032, 28% in the ending 2 years of the tax credit here, but it declines as long as when you get the domestic content requirement kicks in. So right now it's 100% for this tax year, 90% for the following year, 85% in 2 years, but the idea being is that we'll have enough domestic content by tax year 2025 that everyone will be able to comply with this here. So what direct pay means, and it also includes storage, is that what if a government entity or a nonprofit wants to do solar on their building here, they apply to the federal government as part of their 990 tax forms. And what they have to do is they have to pre-register. They have to say what type of system they're doing, the location of their building, provide that information to the Treasury Department. The Treasury Department will give a qualification number back to you. And then you as a organization, not you individually, as an organization fills out the 990T form, provides that information from the qualified number and all the information that they gave back to you, put it onto your 990T form, and then the federal government will send a check back to your organization. So that will be a good way for governments and nonprofits to do solar, because currently right now they have to use a third-party arrangement, and typically it's called a power purchase agreement here, where the panels and the system are owned by a third-party entity, and the nonprofit or the governmental entity then basically pays for the solar that's generated from that building. They usually pay a per kilowatt hour to the owner of it, or they can lease them. But this will now allow the government or the taxpayer to own the system and then take full advantage of the tax credit here. You go to the next slide. Make sure I'm doing okay on time here. I want to mention another state incentive for the state of Illinois. I'm sorry, this is for the federal government. We have a 30% tax credit complies for energy storage for batteries over 5 kilowatt hours. And that's typical of most battery storage systems. I know the ones we install tend to be upwards to 13 kilowatt hours. So most people will be able to take advantage of this energy storage tax credit. You can do it with or without a solar installation. So the whole idea, some of the Generac batteries that are run with diesel are also eligible for this this tax credit. Illinois has a $3,300 per kilowatt hour rebate, which translates to about $4,000 for one battery here. Typical battery storage, it's probably between $15,000 and $20,000. So it's a sizable investment that you make on your home to do battery storage, probably 40 to 50%. If you add that to your solar system, that'd be another 40 to 50% of the cost of the system here. So it's a very good rebate to have that and to encourage battery storage. As you're seeing in other parts of the country, like in California, where they've eliminated net metering, some of that buying back of credits back and forth, battery storage becomes more important, especially as Ameren goes into time of use billing. Battery storage becomes more important. You can tap that energy at nighttime. Next slide, Hannah. That's a picture of me with my electric charger at home, Sequoia, and that's me, my new Chevy Volt, which I'm really proud of here. I'm looking forward to getting my tax credit for my new car here. Recommend Don Brown Chevrolet. Product placement here. They also have $4,000 for used cars here. The income limits are important to remember. I was pleased to get the Volt because it did not have domestic content. I believe my batteries are from South Korea, but so they were able to work in, because of the new car, I was able to slip in kind of a grandfather in for domestic content, but future requirements will have that domestic content for your battery. And so that's going to be an interesting factor in how that drives the electric vehicle charging market here. The income limits are $150,000 for a single filer, $300 for married filer jointly. For a new car, $75 and $150 for a used car. State of Illinois also, again, active and encouraging electric vehicle charging stations. They give a $4,000 rebate for EVs purchased in the state of Illinois. So my coworker also purchased a Chevy Volt, but he had to purchase it at an Illinois dealer to get the Illinois rebate. He wasn't able to purchase it in Missouri. So it must be purchased in Illinois by Illinois residents here. And you can also get a home. I'm sorry, this is for only for low income communities and nonprofits, the EV chargers, not for individuals, up to $1,000 for 30%. You can go to the next slide. The clean energy property tax credit. So this is also coming out of the Inflation Reduction Act, which allows you to get a tax credit for certain purchases that improve the energy efficiency of your home. It's capped at $1,200 per year. There used to be a lifetime cap, and Tim and Aaron, you might know what the lifetime cap was, but I think it was maybe they had a lifetime cap. I think it was maybe something between $5,000 and $10,000 for homeowners, but now you've eliminated that. Now it's per year, which really encourages you to kind of develop almost a home capital plan for yourself It's 30% up to the cost for a maximum of $600 for windows, $600 for electrical panel upgrade, doors, energy audit, insulation, weatherization. But that's separate from the $1,200 tax credit. You can get a $2,000 heat pump. So you add $2,000 for heat pump with $900, remember the slide correctly, for Ameren on the heat pump. So that's a really great incentive for making the heat pump investment into your house. Next slide. These are just some of the states touched on this. I guess we can kind of keep this up here, but these are some of the rebate maximums. State people should probably interrupt me if I'm wrong on this, but this is what I got beforehand. That these are the maximums that would probably come out of the program, but I imagine each state would probably be a little different. So we can go to the next slide here. I do encourage you, Anna mentioned at the very beginning, Rewiring America has a really neat website and a calculator. It was pretty neat to see that US EPA is going to do their own calculator in this presentation, but if they're not up and running yet, Rewiring America, you type in your zip code and your state, and they'll tell you what credits are available, and then eventually what could be eligible in a rebate program if the states kind of follow along the guidance of the federal government. It was rewiringamerica.org. I also wanted to mention, Anna, that was a great website you had put up with all the tax credits on the 1STL one. I really thought that was a great website with all the resources you put on there. And there was a great handout on direct pay from the Blue Green Alliance that you linked to. That was really well done. So I encourage people to take a look at that in addition to that webinar by the tax gentleman from the Midwest Climate Summit. Both of those are really great resources that you have on the webpage. So thank you for doing that. You can go to the next slide. I think I'm almost wrapping up here. We can skip that one here. That's the home house one that they're thinking about. And I'll close here with, I did this presentation to the U.S. Green Building Council, but I felt it was worth keeping this slide in here to encourage people to kind of get a green home certificate and really kind of making these capital investments. You might as well kind of get some credit for it here. Missouri, state of Missouri has a Missouri Home Energy Certificate. Renew Missouri, here our local nonprofit that promotes renewable energy, is partnering up with the Missouri Home Energy Certification to encourage people to get that certification. It's run through an organization called Pearl Certification that allows you to kind of really understand how much energy savings you're getting from those investments and what the actual value to your home is. I know we partner with Pearl Certification to demonstrate the value of solar to your home, the equity value in addition to the energy savings. And then Elevate Energy is a great organization in Illinois. They're headquartered in Chicago. They provide financial support for homeowners in low-income communities to implement building electrification retrofits. And you can check them out. Will do an energy analysis for your nonprofit or for your home or for your low-income property before you get started here. So I encourage everyone here to check out the Missouri Home Energy Certification and then the Elevate Energy Building Energy Program. And I think that's my final slide here, which leaves us plenty of time for questions.
I think so.
Yep. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. And if all of our speakers could stay somewhat near the microphone, it should be able to hear all of us at the table, but just in case. And I'll share the links to Rewiring America's calculator and then the information on 1stl.org that Eric mentioned too in the chat. And there are some questions from Ameren in the chat, so I don't know if maybe we should address those first. But yep, someone asked for that link. And the first question for Ameren is, the website says the heat pump water heater rebate shows that it's through December 31st, 2023. Will that be continued into 2024? Does anyone here know?
I'll confirm with our energy efficiency team. And Anna, do you want me to send a response?
Yes, I can. I should have this person's email so I can follow up with them. Thank you. And then, oh, there's another question about renewing that credit. Is there anything the public can do to help encourage Ameren to renew their credit program beyond 2023? Any thoughts about that?
So, I mean, our energy efficiency program is under review in a number of different stages. So we don't necessarily know exactly what's gonna come out. It's not like we're not asking. I think that's the important message to put forth. And there has been a continuation of the energy efficiency program this year. And then there is work to continue a program next year, but the details of that program are not known yet.
Okay, thank you, Ken. And are there questions from in the room?
Eric, is the energy community, is that by census tract? So like,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
So-
exactly. Yep.
So if it's a low income census tract, then that qualifies for the extra 10%.
The low income is also by census tract too. That's on a different program than the energy community map, but they both are by census tract.
Oh, okay.
Tom, if you go, I think there's called a new markets tax credit. That gives you a pretty good proxy of if you're in a new markets tax credit community, you probably will get that low income tax credit.
Okay.
But the energy community is separate from that, and that's also based on census.
Can you double do?
You can double do, yes. Yeah, the presentation that Anna linked to on the Midwest Climate, they had a funny graphic. They called it the cake layers, and so they actually showed the cake of 70% here, but we're pretty excited with the domestic content and then the energy communities. You're talking 50% right off the bat here for a solar installation, but you definitely can layer everything up. That's the intent.
How many layers do you have to get before your system's free?
Well, we are seeing in Illinois with the Illinois solar renewable energy credits, and then they're eligible for all the federal icing on the cake and all the layers, that the paybacks for businesses there are between 2 to 3 years in payback when you talk about the energy efficiency. So not quite free, but you're getting pretty close. And I do think even here in Missouri without the Ameren rebate in existence, I think you're probably seeing 8 to 10 years probably for businesses to save. To get their savings back on the solar system.
Could we get Illinois to annex St. Louis?
That's probably another sustainability lab topic.
On the layers, on the different tax, if there's which piece comes first? Because some of the tax requires tax liability, but some of the other ones say that even if you don't have tax liability, it's still a credit. EVs in 2024.
Right.
So, but how that interplays between those, I don't know how it plays out.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think there's one over the other. I mean, I think 30% is your base. That's kind of the base right there.
Yeah.
And then, but you probably, that's kind of our first, we always look at your energy bills. The second discussion is what's your tax liability.
That's right.
Now, also, the new thing that is occurring this year is that for businesses, the tax is now transferable. So if you have that excess, then you might be able to sell that tax credit into the marketplace, which could help you if you don't have as much tax liability. But that's only available for for-profit entities.
Yeah, but I
not a tax. I didn't have a disclaimer. I meant to put my disclaimer there. Professional. Everybody else had a disclaimer.
I should, I'm trying to think forward. And in 2024, I think there's probably going to be some people that end up buying an EV and putting solar on the roof, and that's a substantial amount of taxes.
Right. Now, again, you can carry forward.
Yeah, you can carry this
for a year. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's probably the way to do it.
There is, I don't know if you talked about this yet, but there is a website under the Department of Energy. It's www.energy.gov/save, and I can send you a link, but it is the Department of Energy put a website together for individual homeowners to look at tax credits and different incentives locally and federally and show best practices. And it also pays for up to $150 to have a energy audit on your home and have a professional come in and plan out and show you kind of what you need to work on. So that's a Department of Energy resource as well.
Thank you.
Tim, you had a question earlier?
I'll do it offline.
Okay, thanks for that embarrassing.
Deep in the weeds.
I do have a question for the representatives from the states. I just saw today some information that there might be a possibility for retroactively getting one of the rebates. I think it said since August of 2022. Do either of you happen to know anything about that?
I know that I got the same email that announced it from USDOE. with a fact sheet and a whole series of frequently asked questions associated with that. Our intent is to put some of that information out on our rebates webpage, but I think a lot of the applicability will depend on how each state formats its application and how they determine you know, the scope of the rebates and how they will make their proportionate decisions on low income. So I think it's too soon to know exactly how that will apply and whether it will apply broadly. But yeah, USDOE is saying now they want it to be able to be retroactive.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Heather said, that you know, that is info that just came out in terms of further guidance on that topic. And I think, like Heather said, it will depend on also state-specific parameters on what will be required to qualify for the rebates. But the DOE guidance does go through the things that you would have to, at a minimum, have in place in order to potentially qualify. One of the things that's worth noting, among others, in terms of those program details, is whether a state looks at the modeled or measured pathway. There will be different requirements for states that allow homes to qualify based on modeling energy savings versus measuring before and after the upgrades. So I think if you're looking at an upgrade that you need to do, say to a heat pump, I would say don't wait on the rebates, would be my advice. Do what you need to do.
That's good advice. And, we got another question in the chat. Is there a place to go to find the income levels, the actual dollar amount rather than percent of median income that qualify for the home energy efficiency rebates for Missouri? So that's question one. Would you have any thoughts on that, Martin?
There is a link in the DOE guidance, and let me see if I can find, because you're asking about income levels rather than percent of median income. Okay, yeah. So there is a way to sort of crosswalk that information that DOE links to if you give me a sec to find it. And they're also going to be, they also have an online tool that states are going to be able to use to do that. So yeah, let me see if I can get that for you.
Yeah, I think it's also based on your metropolitan area also. I think it's area median income.
It's more nuanced than just the state. It does, my understanding is it does have to go farther down in detail.
Thank you. And the second part of the question was, would most accountants be aware of these tax credits, or is this a pretty specialized area still? Did you have any thoughts on that, or anyone else here?
Well, I know the homeowner ones are pretty common. I know I do H&R Block
Okay.
software, and there's a, you know, they've had that for a while, the energy credit. So I think they would be, and I would actually think most accountants would be pretty much aware of the Inflation Reduction Act. There's been tons of law seminars on it, and accountants, I would think you want to have a good accountant.
A lot of this stuff has been since the Energy Policy Act of 2005, and all this does is continue to amend it. You know, so it's been around for a long time, and it's been declining, but then they keep bringing it back, decline and bring it back. So accountants have been very familiar with this, but it gets real fuzzy sometimes when you get into the 179D components of it. The you know, the depreciation related stuff, not the tax credits.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's see. I'm not. Okay, I think someone asked about the rebates being retroactive, so that question's been answered. So Martin, I think the next question is for you too, regarding the pending MDNR distribution of the federal funding. Do we know yet how these funds will be distributed, rebates, sales tax credits, state tax credits, etc., and or whether they will be retroactive in any way? I'm not sure if Andy was referring to the state rebate programs or EECBG.
Andy, if you don't mind clarifying, that might be helpful. What I will say is I don't think they would go through state tax credits. Tax credits and these rebates are basically two entirely different things, is how I would think about it. And that's also different than, say, the utility rebates that you might get. So these are things that probably feels like a bit of soup in terms of what goes where, but these would not be tax credits, I don't think.
And he did clarify that he meant the rebate programs, so they would
Okay,
be.
well,
set up-
yeah, I mean, the rebate programs will basically be rebates. They will be, I think some of them are envisioned as point of sale. The extent to which it is literally point of sale, I think is still yet to be determined. That's not necessarily as easy as one would hope. But they will be rebates that in one way or another basically discount the price of whatever it is you're installing.
And someone also mentioned, so Martin shared the link to the income requirements in the chat, but I think there is also a link you can click on Rewiring America's calculator to see what those income levels are too. And it is 5 o'clock. Are there any final questions from the group? After these labs, we always head to T-Rex's lounge so we can continue the conversation there.
I have a final question.
Yes.
Perhaps this is to Ameren. I know that there are commissioners that want to eliminate utility rebates once the IRA is in place. And I'm curious, what is the timeline that for energy efficiency programs that are currently in place? What is the deadline that they expire? If that would be initiated by this commission, how long do people have to have those utility rebates in place so they can use them in their cake layers?
Great question. I don't know. Neither one of us works for the efficiency team. We're on the opposite side of the fence, so to speak, around beneficial electrification. So it's a great question. I agree with you. It's something that we could work towards answering, but I don't have your answer.
And I'll get back to you from our energy advisor with all the energy efficiency related questions and responses.
Okay.
So you can share
thank
with the
you.
group.
I'll
That's
share
a
it
great
with Dana
question.
too.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, well, I think that's all the time we have. So I'll be able to save this chat and get back to anyone with follow-up questions, but thanks again so much to all of our speakers, and we'll see everyone January 30th for our next sustainability lab about green workforce, and hope everyone has a great holiday before then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Posted, right?